Good afternoon here. This is Professor York, and I'm going to give you a quick video on marketing funnel and the purchase driver scorecard. This will be helpful for an exercise that we'll be doing on Tuesday. First, I want to start up when talking about really the customer journey or the consumer buying behavior process. And it's a 5-step process. It starts with really your recognition of your external, your needs based on external stimuli, such as if you were out at a farmer's market on a Saturday morning and all of a sudden you saw some fresh produce, which stimulated some pangs of hunger, which are internal stimulation, which may lead to you going to your phone, looking for local restaurants. So in Templeton, there may be 3 or 4 different options, getting a sense of Yelp reviews, menu, prices, maybe some data from TripAdvisor, and you're starting to learn some things and evaluating alternatives, which ultimately translate to choice outcomes, and then ultimately implementation in terms of making that decision to go to that restaurant. You may need to get an Uber, so you need to order that Uber, or you may walk, and so you actually execute that process that's there. You may also, on the back end, if you have had a good experience, you may end up putting on Yelp or on another social platform, Facebook or Twitter, about that experience. But it ties to this journey to what we call the marketing funnel. And the marketing funnel is critical both in terms of marketing, but also in the entrepreneurship community. The most simplest form is a funnel that I like to use, very simple, AIDA, which Alec Baldwin talked about in sales in Glengarry Glen Ross. And I think it's simple to the point, and it does tie back to a model that is used by Steve Blank and Eric Rice over in the entrepreneurship community with Lean Startup. Another way of looking at this in a little broader base is also a broader funnel, which looks at your relationship with the customer and the brand, from awareness to trial, to trying in terms of that you haven't rejected it, but you're not a regular customer. You may be 1 in 3 months, to you're a more recent customer, which may be one time in the past 3 months, to now you're a regular where you're doing it every few weeks, to this is the most office choice that's there, and then ultimately that you are a loyal customer. Heinz is the brand I buy for ketchup. Coke is what I buy for my cola or my beverage. Budweiser is my beer of choice. Okay, so building those habits and loyalty are what we try to do as marketers that are there as we move that customer from the total available to the what we call serviceable, obtainable market, ultimately down that funnel to not just making a purchase decision, but a regular purchase decision, to loyalty, to point of where they are recommenders and they help build your business. So this is the funnel, physical funnel that we see when we think about in the entrepreneurship. And you'll hear I'll talk about get, keep, and grow. And instead of AIDA, it's just CP, consideration and purchase. And as we know that there are things that are on the high level which are earned, such as blogs, such as TV interviews, such as columns that you might have in a newspaper, that is earned or free media. And then there's paid media, such as TV and radio ads, or maybe even AdWords that you might use for Google. And that's to get customers. Okay, get them into that relationship, move them down that funnel. And then hopefully out of the purchase, they may repurchase or they may make recommendations. But what we want to do is keep them, because the least expensive customer, believe it or not, is that customer who repeats that business and stays loyal. And ultimately what we look to do is grow in terms of relationship, in terms of different offering, unbundling, offering, cross-selling, or ultimately what we seek for is that either viral, that is virtual, digital, or word of mouth. And some key funnel metrics to think about is how fast we can move the individual through, okay, which we think about gestation time, We also think about efficiency, which is the efficiency in terms of how many that we start out with that we ultimately end up getting in terms of purchasing, the cost to acquire the customer, which is to get all the costs you have in terms of your marketing media to be able to land one purchase, and then the lifetime value of that customer, which is the total purchases that we have out of that individual customer that has decided to go into a relationship with you. This is just the digital version. You can see acquire and activate is more here, but I tend to lean more towards the AIDA, and then this just sort of hits some additional tactile options to support in terms of creating the acquisition awareness or maintaining that relationship. So you have things like loyalty programs, events and contests, blogs, RSS, program outreach, product updates. These are things to be thinking about as you do your Cleopatra case. Now also, the third way of looking at the funnel is that sales and marketing work together as part of a funnel process. Many times marketing functions to generate leads for sales. And so we may have where the marketing is able to generate those leads such as through a trade show or a certain campaign where there's call-in and it's handed over to a salesperson who literally in the first 24 to 48 hours needs to follow up, or that lead gets cold into that. The salespeople then take that purchase intent to the purchase and then supporting that customer. So relationships are very key to make sure that we continue that support by the customer. Customers taken care of. So service is a very key component from the sales side, and to promote advocacy, which is so that we have referrals. So it creates that viral loop. So segueing from the funnel, we're going to talk about a practical tool that will be helpful both in school, in this class, but also through your career, which is called the Purchase Driver Scorecard, which really, if you look at the elements that are in the PDSC, you see that they very much mirror that of the funnel. Okay, and it is in a spreadsheet format. So some key definitions to think about is your potential, which is the size of the market. The awareness is the level of awareness of the product and services with the target market. And then familiarity is where there's some knowledge by the customer about the products, and that means information about the attributes and pricing of our solutions. Consideration is where the solutions part of the customer's consideration set, which is there may be an array of products that they're considering. It may be multiple computers, it could be multiple phones, it could be multiple cars as you're driving down Los Osos Valley Road and you decide at this point in time to do some test driving. So you can make a decision on ultimately what car you're going to buy. And then last but not least is that purchase, getting into a relationship. And that back end where we talked about with the service piece, it's very, very critical. It's not just that the solution is satisfactory. Okay, so with the degree to which the solutions meet the needs, exceed the needs, and anticipate customer needs. So they're very critical from a marketer standpoint, and that's where service does come into play and various support programs that are there, because it's not just a product, it is the whole experience. And that experience translates into loyalty and repurchase. So we can put metrics against this. And we can use a tool and we can think and plan in terms of how we can be able to manipulate the funnel. Why that's important is there are folks out there, consultants in the business, that need people who understand this and can work with funnel metrics, especially on the digital side. Very, very hot area. So here's an example of a scorecard applied to a commercial air filter. What do we see that's interesting here? So we see first is they fall off in the funnel. That happens in each stage. Second of all is that what we do notice is that we see big fall off is right there in terms of, going from awareness to familiarity. So there's a gap there that could be filled maybe to improve the efficiency that's there. And then what we do notice is in the yellow, these are percent change from the previous step. Okay, so as you can see, these are places where we have the opportunity at the end of the day to make an impact. So here's another place in terms of moving from consideration to purchase. You're finding that not all who consider are buying. And then last but not least, we see that not everybody's satisfied. So there's various places now as a marketer that you can be able to go back into the process and look at how you can improve the efficiency of the funnel as well as the customer experience so that that satisfaction number goes up, which leads to loyalty and repurchase. So here's an example, just to get you familiar in a spreadsheet format. I'll pull out another spreadsheet in a few minutes. And this is Raj Kumar of Dow. He has applied the purchase driver scorecard to some pre and post research data pertaining to an exterior paint sold by Dow's biggest customer. So what you see here data-wise is here's the sum, and what we start seeing is the conversion rate. So the conversion from the million, but then the 50% from the potential, so 50% of awareness, okay, 55% of the potential, 50% of awareness, 92% of familiarity, 88% and 86% of purchasers. Okay, so you can structure a spreadsheet that starts taking this into consideration as you put in your input data. So in this case, Raj is asking how many customers will purchase. And that's that ultimately coming from the 1 million down to the actual purchase. And it's not 88% is not the right answer. It's the combination of the reduction in the percentages that come from that 1 million to 550,000, and then all the way these cut of the percentages of it. So then also is how many customers will repeat purchase, which is based on the satisfaction numbers that are. So what Raj has done is set up the PDSC, and as you can see, what he's done is the conversion from a previous set and forecast the number of customers there, and then ultimately in terms of repeat customers based on satisfaction data. And then, Raj is curious about the impact of enhanced awareness. So you could actually put in now into the spreadsheet, what if we change the awareness numbers? What's the impact it's going to be in terms of number of customers based on this fallout or conversion rate from step to step, ultimately to purchasing? So, we want to invest in advertising campaign. What happens here? And all of a sudden we're at, oh, wow, 283. Wow, we are up. Okay, by 61,000 or 28%, 27%, from the initial. What a great job. Okay, so, hey, it sounds like putting that investment into an advertising campaign to increase awareness really would be great to convert from, I think it was 55% to 70%. So that's what you can start calculating in the purchase driver scorecard. Okay, it allows you also to manipulate other factors. So we could look at purchase conversion levels in looking at these changes. And so when you do those changes, then what can happen is you can start looking at various scenarios as well. And you can input then and tie in the purchase driver scorecard also your income statement, which then can give you an economic output, which is really, really cool. So you can now look at, the number of who purchased, but then you can then put in, basically unit sales per customer. You can then look at revenue based on purchase price discount as well as cost of goods sold. And then, you can input in terms of the cost of your marketing program and really get a set of a net outcome in terms of economic outcome. So you can go to the level of not only doing that, but setting up what we call 2x2 tables where you can vary various scenarios such as awareness versus price. And so by doing that and setting it up as a 2x2 table, what can happen is now you get a variety of scenarios based on how you've improved awareness, or lower awareness, and how you've manipulated your price. So that can give you some scenarios that are there to see various combinations of marketing, investment to enhance awareness, but also price. You see if improvement in price sensitivity will increase sales, or if we can bump up price to increase overall dollars. And then, again, 2 by 2, we can look at, we can put the impact of a marketing program at 750K versus $1 million. So we can put that into our input data, which will translate out in terms of in our income statement in terms of your SG&A portion. So it'll impact your net profit at the end of the day. So you can see what impact is that to the output table that's there. So that sort of gives you a high-level overview relative to the purchase driver scorecard, the customer purchase process, and also the purchase driver scorecard and the marketing funnel. So this, I'm just going to run through it very quickly here so you are familiar with what we're thinking, what we would like to do on this assignment on Tuesday. So we're going to have some time for breakout on teams, and I thought rather than just doing lecture, we do a team exercise and have you with some data, and I'll put together some data and have you create your own purchase driver scorecard. So one of the things that we like to do when setting up these spreadsheets, and again, I don't know where you are relative to your other classes in terms of spreadsheet development, whether it's in accounting or in finance or in quant, but generally you have an input section and then you have an output section. So what I've created here is input variables. So you have units per customer, price per unit, discount per unit, cost per unit, which is sort of the financials that you have in terms of what we call trying to calculate gross profit and revenues. And then you have what we call marketing program, sales program, GSA costs that would be more in terms of net profit that's there. But in the red, this is what's important here. Here's some variables that you can now input in, and these are inputs. So that means you input the data straight. Okay, and then what you can do is start to manipulate. So think about, particularly awareness is going to be a very key input that is there. So when you have done that, then you get to outputs. And here's the purchase driver scorecard. And I'll just make this a little bigger so you can see. So on the purchase driver scorecard, what you can see is we've taken these pieces of market potential, awareness, familiar, consideration, purchase, satisfaction, repeat, and total customers, which is a combination of repeat and purchase, and put them together, which is your forecasted customers. So if you remember in that example with Raj, we've been able to do a conversion from the total market potential into each individual stepping down. And as you remember, what Raj had data-wise to work with the percent change from each previous step that's here. Prior step, here's the percent change for each step from potential, which is the market potential, the first line that's here. So what we want you to do is I will give you data to talk about prior step, be able to calculate each step from potential, and then create a forecast number, okay? But we want you to tie in here your drivers in your input section, both in terms of your what we call your purchase driver scorecard drivers or your funnel drivers, and your marketing program costs, that would be, and then your what I call your revenue parameters. So then what you can do is you can tie in the output of the purchase driver scorecard. So this will be the interesting thing, is the output of that, which is the total customers, which comes into here, which be in the income statement, and then calculating in terms of the number of units per customer, which should be in your input variable so that you can then calculate gross sales. And gross sales is going to be your price times your discount. So I'll have data around that. And then cost of goods, which is the cost per unit. And those pieces tied together, particularly your gross sales minus cost of goods, will give you gross profit. And then from there, what we can do is then we can subtract out the various SG&A, where marketing, program, sales, and general administration. If you've done the model right, you would then get what we call net profit, or the economic outcome, or in this case would be the net income. So that, if we can get through that piece, or just even get through understanding the purchase driver scorecard, and then the second piece being linking the income statement, you're going to be ahead of the game. So I want to use that as part of the exercise so that you can understand these drivers, the conversion rates, and then ultimately in terms of income statement. Also is, I'd like you to put in here funnel efficiency. So to look at the end of the day, here's the market potential, and then here's the actual purchase. So that ratio, okay, the 223,000 purchases out of the market potential, 1 million, will give you what we call your funnel efficiency. Now, for those who get through that portion, the last piece, which was discussed in the previous slides, is the 2x2 table. And so in essence is if you've done your model correctly, and this is again a core capability of someone who has an MBA, is to be able to create models, is then to be able to link the economic outcome, which is here, net profit, okay, with awareness and price variability. So we're going to vary awareness, we're going to vary price. And you say, well, how do I do this 2x2 table? So if you've set this up in a straight line, if you've set that your economic outcome and your table is above the what we call the changing cell, that would be the economic outcome, and then what you do is then you select out the two parameters, awareness and profit, and then you pull across this table, and then you go to data, and then you go to what if analysis, and you look at data table. And in the data table you see row input cell. So the row input cell, which be the pricing variability, which I just flipped what Raj had. I think he had awareness in terms of market awareness on the top. And then the column input, which here we have, is awareness. You put that in, and that will calculate various scenarios of these combinations that are there that will then be very useful for when you go back into your input data and then you start thinking about, oh, I want to tweak awareness. And say I want to make 70%, and you can see this table changing based on awareness. Or you can even see straightforward based on what 70 is, based on the scenario. 70 at $5 is $3.2 million. Or you want to reduce your marketing program costs in half. You're going to see an impact of that. So it becomes really nice iterative to be able to identify how we can impact both the funnel metrics and pieces that are there in terms of marketing campaigns or support campaigns, but also in terms of the costs that might be associated with there, as well as pricing, which could impact in terms of both uptake in the marketplace, but also in terms of overall revenues. So anyway, I certainly hope that this video helps you out. I did it on Sunday afternoon, so you'd have something to review prior to class on Wednesday. And if you have any questions in the meantime, feel free to reach out. Okay, enjoy the rest of your Sunday. I'll talk to you soon.